You know, the sun is out, the birds are singing, and it's warm-ish. You know what that means, right? It means that we are in the full swing of spring, and I'm here for it. And welcome to yet another episode of Q&A with Gray. I'm your host, Graylin Brown. I am a Texas master gardener that has been growing for over 20 years out here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And my whole goal is to just be your friendly neighborhood gardener, here to help you grow. And if by chance you're new here, hey there, how's it going? Appreciate you coming hang out with me. But just know that this is a series dedicated to you, the growth. So if you have questions, my goal is to answer them. And if you're wondering, how do you get one of your questions featured on Q&A with Gray? That part's super simple. All you have to do is drop your question right in the comments. And now give me about a week or so to get back to you, and I'll help you out as best as possible. And now with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into that first question because it's a good one. And now our first question comes to us from YouTube, and that's, have you grown catnip successfully? I'm in zone 9B. Yes. Yes, I have. I love catnip. Interestingly enough, the reason why I started growing catnip comes from my daughter. We have two cats, actually both my son and my daughter. They both have two cats, Whiskers and Mittens, and we love them. They are members of the family. Whiskers affectionately has attached himself to me, so I have totally become a cat dad. I guess you can call me a cat daddy. But my daughter came to me and she, found out about catnip, and she was like, "Dad, you're a gardener. Can you grow me some catnip?" I was like, "Ooh, I totally can." So yes, with that being said, I have started catnip from seed, and I've successfully grown catnip. Now, with that being said, you're in zone 9B, I'm in zone 8B. You should have no problem growing catnip whatsoever. But I will say one thing, and this is something I want you to consider. Catnip. Catnip is from the mint family. It's from that same family of plant as mint, just like your oreganos and so forth. That's also in the same mint family. So with that being said, catnip can be an aggressive grower. So I'm going to say keep that in the back of your mind. If you are planning on growing catnip, you need to make sure that you contain it, because it can kind of get out of hand. It's not as aggressive or as invasive as mint, but it can be a little bit of an aggressive grower. And if you are growing it outside, do realize, depending on where you live, you may be calling in all the local feral cats to come and visit your yard and use it as a litter box. So just keep that in your mind. But yes, when I grow my catnip out here in Texas, usually I will do it in a container, and it'll be my container garden section of my property. Actually, I have property. I actually have a deck up on that I use. I do a lot of my container planting, and that's typically where I'll grow my catnip. So it's not just easy access, because I do have a few local feral cats that do walk around the property, and a bobcat as well. And now, wait, because I don't want you to think that I own a bobcat, or those feral cats for that matter. They just kind of come and peruse the neighborhood and visit me occasionally. I mean, the bobcat, that's the reason why I no longer have chickens on my property. But you know what? That's a story for another day. If you'd like to know about the whole bobcat escapade, just let me know in the comments. But let's get to this next question. All right, so our next question asks the question, okay, I am curious to know what happened to my blueberry bushes. I purchased them from a local supermarket in 2024. They were flowering at the time and bore a decent amount of berries. In 2025, nothing. No flowering, no fruit, just leaves. I don't know what happened. Was I supposed to do something? Now, this is a great question because I love growing blueberries. And let's kind of walk through what is required for blueberries. Trust me, look, for this, for blueberries, it took a lot of trial and error and a lot of dead blueberry plants for me to finally figure this out. So what I ended up doing, I ended up having to do an extensive amount of research on blueberry plants. That's the way my mind works. I never see things as a fail. I just look at it as something I haven't figured out yet. Does that make sense? So I ended up doing an extensive amount of research. I should have done the research before I started growing my blueberries, but that's neither here nor there. Um, this actually led me to the LSU Agriculture Department in the local ag extension. And what I found out is that blueberries are not like most of the things we grow in our garden when it comes to soil, right? The soil pH specifically. So most of the things we grow in our garden like your soil to be slightly acidic. We're talking about a range of about 6.5 or so, 7 being your neutral. And then, of course, when we start going higher up that scale, up to like your 8s, 9s, and so forth, that's when you're more alkaline. But most of the annuals that we grow out in our garden, it's going to like around that 6.3 to 6.5 or so, just slightly acidic. That's what they're going to like. Blueberries? No, not even close. Blueberries, specifically the rabbit eye family. That's the family of blueberries that I prefer growing because of my microclimate where I live in Texas. They tend to do really well out here in the southern states. Rabbit eye blueberries like to have a soil pH of about 4.5 to about 5.2. So it really likes it acidic. I mean, we're talking about the acidity levels just a little bit higher than your basic household white vinegar. So household white vinegar is like around 3 or 3.5. So blueberry isn't that extreme, but it's pretty close. I mean, because we're talking about a range of 4.5 to 5.2. So with that being said, my soil was never acidic enough for the blueberries. So one, that's why my plants kept dying. And then the plants that did somehow survive, I never really got any fruit on them until I learned this key step. And that's what you're going to have to do. So more than likely, when you received your blueberries from your local grocery store or supermarket, it already had the proper soil that it liked in it. And hence the reason why it was flowering and why you did receive some fruit once you got it home. But that next year after the plant, because we know blueberries are a perennial bush, right? They'll go dormant in the winter and then come back in the spring. So fast forward from 2024 to 2025, now your blueberries, the soil is not as acidic as it was, so you got no flowering. And I know you might be asking yourself, well, if it was acidic before, why is it not acidic now? What happened? Well, you have a lot of things going on in your soil. You know, soil health, soil biology is one of my favorite subjects. Soil naturally will try to neutralize itself, go into like a neutral state. So, I mean, and that comes from soil microbes. That also goes into decomposition that's taking place. All of those different factors are taking place. Your soil will get away from the low side, the acidic side, and start to try to find more of a neutral state. And that comes from watering as well. All of those different variables, they all play a factor in that. So 2025, your soil may have no longer been the acidity that blueberries require. So what you have to do in those situations is you have to add an acidifier to your soil so you can keep it at that acidic state. And that will cause your flowering, which will end up leading to your fruit. So my recommendation for you is one, let's try to see if we can acidify that soil. And you can easily do so by adding in items such as elemental sulfur, as well as peat moss is another source that will get you down to that acidity that you require. Some big box brands and big box stores will have specific acidic soil that you can buy to amend to your soil as well. For instance, like there's azalea blends. An azalea, they're another plant that actually requires that nice acidic soil. That's a good way of changing the pH of your soil so it can be something that the blueberries require. You don't really have to go in and fertilize your blueberries. The reason what's going to cause it to flower, what's going to allow for the nutrient uptake and the nutrient cycle and everything for blueberries is going to be that soil pH. It's kind of very similar to like that of the strawberry, right? If you grow strawberries, which I love growing strawberries out here in Texas, I have about 13 strawberry patches. But with that being said, strawberries, they like a pH of a nice 6.2, 6.3, give or take. And that's how they're able to start, one, taking up all the nutrient, taking up their water, and then allows them to flower and then fruit. So same cycle, just lower, I was about to say higher, lower on that acidity level for your blueberries, and that will definitely help you out. But you know what? Give it a shot. See what you can do as far as acidifying that soil. Let me know how it goes for you. And if you do have follow-up questions, you can easily reach out to me over on Instagram, and that's going to be at Urban Gardening with Gray, or you can always email me directly, and that's at urbangardeningwithgray@gmail.com, or send us a DM over on at Botanical Interest on Instagram as well. We have multiple avenues of approach for to get your question answered. But great question. I do love it. All right, next question comes to us from at Roxanne Loomis 7965. And the question states, love the video. Thank you. Question. At the end of the last video, you mentioned a question about stunted seedlings because of the crazy weather, aka the hot, cold, hot, cold. My eggplant seedlings are stunted. I'm hoping they will bounce back. I am not sure they will. Zone 7A, Southeast Pennsylvania. Any advice? Yes. The short answer is yes, they will recover. So that's the good news. But now let me explain. See, so your eggplants are in the same family of plants as your tomatoes, bell peppers, potatoes, even tobacco. They're all in the same family. And these plants are typically our warm season crops, right? And I say warm because they like a temperature between about 70, well, let's say 65 to about 85. Anything higher than that, they'll kind of slow down in production. But I digress. Your eggplants are resilient plants, and that influx in temperature, that up and down, could totally be affecting your seedlings, and the reason why they may be stunted. But the good thing is, they're resilient plants. They will bounce back. Um, it's interesting when it comes to eggplants. In 2016, horticultural science actually had discovered that eggplants have a unique trait in them, which is called like a stress memory. Well, they'll actually kind of remember what stresses they went through in the past during their growth, and that will actually allow them to build up resilience. It's interesting. Plants, I love it because, this is me going a little philosophical for a moment, but I love it because plants are almost like us. That stress, that trauma makes them stronger as a plant. So don't worry, your eggplants will return, I assure you. All right, and on to our next question. And that comes to us from at Sheila Everin 8822. The question that Sheila asks is about aphids. Would row covers, like you would use to keep out cabbage moths, help with aphids? Shorter answer is yes, totally would. Because what you're doing is you're applying a mechanical barrier. And honestly, when it comes to any kind of integrated pest management system, when you're managing pests in your garden, the more avenues of approach, the better. Of course, we always want to start with the least invasive first, right? So applying mechanical barriers like your row covers definitely can help in the situation. But now, to make them the most effective, the thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to, one, make sure you're applying it right when you're planting. It has to be done almost instantaneous to stop them from being able to crawl in the first place. Second is you're going to have to make sure you seal all of the edges because any of the slightest cracks will allow them to infiltrate the garden. Then the next thing is you want to consider that using mechanical barriers like your row covers can totally help out. While it will keep out your invasive pests and so forth, or your insects and so forth, it's also going to keep out your pollinators as well. So this is something that you have to consider. So while your pollinators are out, you may have to come out and actually take your row covers off so that they can go into their thing, or you can hand pollinate. So these are definitely options that you can pursue with your aphids. So again, short answer to your question is yes, row covers definitely can help out. All right, and moving right on along, and this is actually going to come to us from Instagram. Now, at Mary I states, I'm in Virginia, Zone 8B, and struggling with keeping Bermuda grass out of my beds. I have been gardening for 3 seasons. This is my 4th. Congratulations there. And we turned a large area of our lawn into mixed-use gardens, but I cannot seem to keep up with the Bermuda grass issue. Any suggestions? And yes, Bermuda grass can really kind of be a bugaboo to kind of deal with. Reason being is because Bermuda grass is almost like mint. It's not in the same family, but it's very similar. It has underground rhizomes, which they can spread themselves with, and then they have above ground stolons that can also help them spread. Plus, they have a crazy deep root system. And then giving your neck of the woods during your hot, humid summers, it can really become a problem. But what I love about our gardening community is that one of the garden community members over on Instagram jumped in to assist with this. And I love it because this comes from at Kathy Cali Art. And she is actually one of my top supporters over on Instagram. And her response is, Bermudas have runners. Absolutely. And we'll chop. What you'll have to do is you'll have to chop them down and probably install a metal barrier, like sheet metal, down into the soil to prevent them from invading. Since you can't use a spray here, the herbicide will flow back through the runner and kill off the rest of your lawn. And I love at Kathy Cali Arts response because she's absolutely right. And again, going back to the mechanical barrier, like we were speaking about before, this is something that you definitely need to consider. And now, what I would say in this situation is piggybacking off of what Kathy Cali Art says is that when we're installing that permanent structure, that metal, correct? We want to go about 12 to 16 inches down in the soil line if you can. I know it might be a little bit of a challenge, but honestly, the deeper you can go, the better, because this is going to help block out those rhizomes from spreading into that growing area. Next thing is we still want to leave about a good 2 to 3 inch layer for your metal up at the top to stop those above ground stolons. And if you do this, this honestly might prevent the spread of that Bermuda grass. Now, if this sounds like it's a little bit labor intensive, which in all earnest it is, there is another non-permanent measure that you can approach with as well. And this is going to be by smothering the Bermuda. So what you do is go and take your mower and mow down the area you want to, prevent that creating that blockade, right? Mow it down on the lowest setting on your mower you can possibly go. Chop it as much down as possible. Then give it a nice deep water real good right there in that spot. Then take you some corrugated cardboard and layer it down on top of it. Layer it as deep as you can. If you can go 2 to 3 layers deep, that's even better. Cover the area completely and then cover that with a nice, I'd say about 4 inch layer of mulch on top of it. Leave it there for about a good half year or even a year if you can. By putting that down, that should smother out the rhizomes enough so that they actually prevent the Bermuda from spreading. But now the only challenge to this, the only caveat is that eventually, if it's removed, the Bermuda will start encroaching as well. And then you still have those above ground stolons, so eventually it will start kind of creeping back on you. But what you can do in this situation is, like we said before, going back to that mechanical barrier, trying to creating that obstacle for your Bermuda encroachment problem that you have going on. But at Mary Eyes, reach back out to me. Let me know which option you decide to go with, and let me know how it goes. And if you need further help, just let me know. You know I'm here to help. All right, and our next question is yet again another Instagram question, and this one's a really good one. Is there any truth to the practice of putting seeds in one's mouth to mix with saliva before planting in order to tailor the plant's growth to one's specific nutritional needs? No. There's no validity to it at all. There's no science backing to it at all. Actually, everything we know about medical science would completely counter this 100%. This is more of that internet speculation, internet hype. Because first, let's look at a seed. When we take a seed, we're talking about most of your seeds are going to have a nice hard outer shell on them that's going to protect the seed while it's traveling. Because we remember, all right, seeds are spread through us human beings, right? Planting them, direct sowing, and so forth. But they're also planted by just simple wind, like when you get your dandelions and so forth. They're also spread by birds and animals even. Like when a bird comes by and picks your blueberry, they eat that seed and then they spread out and defecate and do their nature's business, right? And then that seed then is allowed to grow in somewhere different. So if we look at how a seed is formed and that outer shell that's going to have, like for instance, seeds like your moringa or your Swiss chard, they have a really nice shell on the outside. This protective layer is going to block anything that might be in your saliva from penetrating the seed to cater it or tailor it to the plant's specific growth. And then as far as nutritional needs go, all right, I want you to think about this something just for a moment. Think about every time you've ever went to go see your physician, right? Or let's say, maybe you were hospitalized at one specific moment. Every time you're there, I know for me, speaking from personal experience, they have to run copious amounts of tests, right? So just to even tell what's going on in your body, I mean, there's blood that has to be drawn, other bodily fluids that has to be drawn. Simply just taking the saliva from your mouth, there's some things that can be, discovered from saliva, but it's very minimal. I mean, because and I know it's something that we've heard many times, but the human being's mouth, there's so many different things and bacteria and so forth, all kind of different variables in there. So to say that, a seed can tell what your body is deprived of just from the saliva in your mouth, again, really just speculative. Then let's look at something else from another point. Let's look at genetic modification, because theoretically, that's kind of what we're discussing here. When companies genetically modify seed, it's something that's done in a controlled environment over multiple periods of time. Even if we're not talking about genetic modification in a lab specifically, let's think about cultivars that we've created in our gardens. Of course, how many varieties of tomato are there? There's a multitude. Mint, for instance. I mean, honestly, it could be hundreds of different variants of mint out there. So it takes a copious amount of time for those different cultivars and varieties to be created through like hybridization process and so forth. So doing essentially doing all of that in just one seed going into your mouth is unrealistic. So while this is a fantastic question, and I appreciate you for asking me, no, unfortunately, it's not true. It's just more hype. So I mean, if you want to know what nutritional needs, what plants you should be growing in your garden, here's the advice I'm going to give you: speak to your nutritionalist, speak to a medical professional. Only a medical professional can tell you what you need specifically in your diet, and then look for those plants that have the requirements you require. Make sense? Okay. And our next Instagram question. Ooh, this one's gonna be fun. What's your favorite annual seed to grow? Oh, that's a challenge there. That's a challenge. Ooh, thank you for this one. Because honestly, I could spend 2, 3 hours just talking about the different seeds that I like growing. Because I've been growing for quite a bit, and it's a challenge because there's so many different seeds that I like growing, and there's two that's on my top list. So I'm gonna alter your question a little bit. I'm gonna say, what's your top two annuals to grow? And I'm gonna say number two is going to be the marigold. I love marigolds. Marigolds are an awesome flower because let's face it, I am a total flower fella. One, because the aesthetics you get from the flower. Like for instance, one of the marigolds that I was actually planting right at the top of this video is the French marigold favorite blend. One, because of the color contrast. You get a nice mixture of reds and oranges and yellows there in your garden. And sometimes out here in these green spaces, having that contrast of color appeals to the aesthetic. I like to have a little pop of color in the garden. But two, marigolds serve multiple purposes because they're not just there for the aesthetics in your garden. They can actually be a fantastic companion plant. I love planting marigolds with my tomatoes as well as my strawberries, like you saw at the beginning, right? Because they can help drive off root knot nematodes, which both of these plants are susceptible to. So yeah, marigolds is definitely a number two. And the only reason why it's a number two is because my top fave, it only gets pushed out because of my history. That's going to be tomatoes. Now, a little bit of a backstory. I first learned how to grow from my grandmother when I was about maybe 10, 11 years old. And, when my mom came to me, she tasked me with growing tomatoes for myself for the first time. And ever since then, I was hooked. I don't want to age myself or date myself there, but I've been growing ever since then. So you do the math. But I love tomatoes. But it's not just me. I mean, think about it. tomatoes are one of the most widely grown fruit in the entire world. It's interesting the history of tomatoes. I could go down this whole rabbit hole and tell you how when people first discovered tomatoes in the Americas, they thought they were poisons because tomatoes coming from the nightshade family. But I'm definitely gonna digress because I love tomatoes, and I know it's not just me. Like for instance, one of my great friends, Jacques over at Jacques in the Garden, he's a tomato guy too. And the tomato that I'm excited about growing this year, while Roma tomatoes grow in my garden every single year to honor my grandmother, the one that I'm growing this year is well, one of several is going to be the black crim tomato because this is the first time growing this variety for me. But everything I've read about the tomato, everything I've read in the comments about everyone, once I filmed the videos, everyone telling me what this tomato tastes like. First of all, it's supposed to have a slightly smoky, almost salty kind of taste to it. So it's a nice complex flavor. But everyone says that it tastes like barbecue sauce on the vine. So I am fully for it. I mean, because out here in Texas, as we start to get into these warmer months, the grill's gonna get fired up. So going right into grilling season, this is one that I can't wait to taste it, slice and throw onto a burger or put in a nice salad because I think it's gonna be a nice complementary flavor. So yeah, so number one for me has to be the tomato by far. Thank you for asking this question because honestly, I could talk tomatoes all day long. I might have to call up Jock and we actually just have a whole tomato discussion because yeah, we're both we're tomato brothers. Our next question is more of a statement, but this is from Instagram as well. And for context, I believe we are talking specifically about seedlings. And it says, knowing when to transfer them outside. Also, fertilizing seedlings. All right, and I'm going to tell you something that is going to be important, and you're going to understand. It's going to depend. It's going to depend on your microclimate, not just your zone. Because I mean, yeah, for instance, I'm in zone 8B, right? Just south of Dallas, Texas. And your zone only really speaks about your chill hours or your when your first and last frost date is. But even though I'm in zone 8B, what may work for me will be different for like a neighbor or for like one of my buddies that may be 5, 10 miles away or so forth. Your microclimate in your growing apparatus or your backyard and so forth can vary. So it's going to depend on that. Two, it's going to depend on the plant as well. But just to give you some generalized information, and we're just speaking in generalities, what you're essentially looking for is one, the growth of the seed, right? When a seed first grows, you're going to see some initial leaves there. Those initial leaves are just that. They're just your initial leaves that's coming out of your seedlings. I usually wait until we get about maybe 2, 3 sets of leaves, your secondary and tertiary leaves, because you want to make sure that one, that stem and that plant is going to be healthy enough to be able to go outdoors. But two, you want a little bit more leaf growth, more vegetative growth, so that you have enough plant matter or biomass here so that it can photosynthesize correctly. You don't want to just throw it to the wolves, right? So that's going to be the first step. If you want to have those secondary and third sets of leaves, plus you want to have next a good root system. You want a nice, good, healthy root ball. And again, this is going to vary depending on what type of plant you're talking about. Or we're talking about something like a lettuce that's going to have like a nice fibrous root system. Or we're talking about something like an okra, which is going to have a very long taproot. All of these different things are going to matter. So one, I want at least secondary and tertiary leaves growing on the plant. Two, I want a nice, healthy, thick root ball. Again, depending on what the plant is. And then the third thing is you have to harden them off first. This is a step that a lot of maybe beginner gardeners may kind of gloss over and may not be aware of. But you have to harden the plant off. And what that essentially means is, and this for this one, I want to say you want to go back to episode 1 of Q&A with Greg, because we went into great detail about this. My wife affectionately called hardening off plant play dates, when you essentially take your plants out for a short period of time to get them used to the environment that they're going to be growing in, right? Because if we're starting them indoors, because that's what it sounds like from the statement, that we're growing them indoors and then we want to take them outdoors. Inside, you have the best situation. You have the best temperature. You have the best humidity, the best lighting if we're using a grow light, right? So you have that controlled environment, but then we're going to put it outside where the environment is no longer controlled. You're going to have wind, rain, sun. You're going to have morning sun, which is very soft and gentle. You're going to have high noon, which can be very harsh. So these are things that you kind of have to build up that tolerance in that plant. And by implementing those 3 steps, that's when you will know to be able to take your plants outside so they can fully be just in all of the different variables that happen outside. So again, while I can't give you, oh, in 4 to 6 weeks, I can't give you an exact timeline because it truly is going to vary based off of your growing conditions and the plants that you're growing. So that's where I'm going to lead to for my advice. I hope this helps out. Now let's look at your second portion of the question. The second portion of the question, you were talking about fertilizing seedlings. And I'm going to say right out the gates, I don't fertilize seedlings whatsoever. The reason being is because inside of that seed, if we really look at a seed, there's everything that that seed needs to have to procreate itself. It's much like um, a mother and a child of an animal, right? Or a human being for that matter. Um, Inside of that embryonic sac is going to be everything that that new offspring is going to need to be successful to be able to grow. Same thing exactly with a seed. There's fats, there's proteins, there's enzymes, there's everything that that seedling needs to be able to start itself. You don't have to plant anything else. You don't have to apply anything else. So fertilizers and so forth, I don't actually begin my fertilization schedule until the plant has, again, hardened off, been properly transplanted, and then I will begin fertilizing because one, we're in new conditions and everything that was in that initial seed has now been since used up for the plant to just start that initial germination. And so when it comes to fertilizing seedlings, I don't fertilize them at all until they have been fully transferred. And now if you need any further assistance, feel free to drop us a message in the comments and I'll definitely be here to help you out. All right, and on to our next Instagram question here. And that is, are there any good communities outside of Instagram to get involved with in people's local areas, i.e., Facebook, Discord, etc.? I don't have an answer to that question. I don't know because it's going to vary depending on your local area. So, yes, while checking out Facebook is a great source for this because the Facebook communities and the Facebook groups is a great place for this. For instance, I know out here in Texas, there's one is Ask a Texas Gardener. That's a great one. Or Ask a North Texas Gardener. That's one I know of as well. So those communities do exist on Facebook, and that might be your best avenue of approach because when we talk about all the different social media platforms, each has their plus and their minuses. Places where they perform the best, and I think Facebook is going to be a good avenue of approach for that. You may also want to check out Threads. Threads is another one. It is an offshoot of Instagram. That one may be another where you can actually get more of that local spice, that local flavor. And I just want to say, commend you for going the route of the local community gardener route. In my opinion, in all earnest, I believe that going local is a very good avenue of approach because local gardeners and growers are going to know more specifically about your growing zone. They're going to know more about the pests in your environment, the weather conditions, even the soil composition. So I would say going local is great. For instance, now this is a question that no one asked me. And I was waiting for someone to ask this question. I love native plants. And when you reach out to one of your local gardeners or your gardener communities or community gardeners and so forth, this is when you get that untapped resource, right? This is when you tap into that knowledge base because one of my favorite native plants to grow out here in North Texas is going to be blue mealy sage. I love blue mealy sage because the pollinators love it. It is a fantastic prolific grower. Um, and it looks awesome. That flower, I can't get enough of it. And it blooms all season long. Second is Turk's Cap, right? Turk's Cap is an amazing Texas native that produces this little tiny fruit on it that tastes like a mini Macintosh apple. So when you reach out to your local communities, that's the kind of knowledge you can get. Um, so I mean, I don't know specifically where you're at. Like, let's say you're in Arizona or New Mexico or Massachusetts, for that matter. I won't have that knowledge specific to those specific zones. So that's one, reaching out to your local community is a great source of information. But now, I do have a recommendation for you that is not really online, so to speak, that you might be interested in. This is a community organization, community driven, that I'm actually a part of out here in Texas. Consider looking into your Master Gardener program. All right, so I want to cull the myth, or stop the myth, so to speak, when it comes to Master Gardeners. I've stated this before because I'm really trying to stop people from putting us in this grand scale like that. Master Gardeners are not Jedi Masters. We don't know every single plant in the world. Our organization is actually a community driven organization. We're here to, one, help gardeners grow, learn how to grow, spread knowledge. We're really an education organization. And then we're a volunteer organization as well. Master gardeners, their origins, I mean, dates back, I don't have specific dates, but it dates back a really long time. All started with like a hotline where you could call your local master gardener. Hey, I'm thinking of growing plant X. I'm thinking of growing petunias. Can you give me soil recommendations? And a master gardener would pull out, reference material and start reading through it, and find that specific question for you. That's where we got our start. So it's funny doing, this series with you, Q&A with Gray. I'm still being a master gardener because I'm still answering your gardening questions. But the best part about being a master gardener is it's a volunteer organization. That's what our main purpose is we go into communities and we help out start community gardens. We can help out with the local butterfly garden and so forth. One of the requirements is that you have to have X amount of volunteer hours each year to be considered a master gardener. So for instance, in the state of Texas, it's 50 hours where you're, again, helping out a community garden. You're weeding in the botanical gardens or butterfly garden and so forth. So if you're looking for something that's going to be more community driven, that may be just a little bit outside of the internet, and the reason why I say outside of the internet, while you can reach out to your local ag extension, which every single master gardener organization is tied to, mine being Texas A&M, you can reach out to them and they can get you in touch with your local county, and kind of get you set on the right path. So I think that's an avenue of approach worth looking into, because we always need more master gardeners helping everybody get out there and grow something. For our next question, this actually comes to us from TikTok. And yes, you can actually reach out to me on TikTok. To get your questions answered on TikTok, all you have to do is simply send me a direct message. And again, that's going to be over at Urban Gardening with Gray, as well as at Botanical Interest. And we can answer those questions there as well. And now this one comes from Felicia Fries. I can't get my asparagus to germinate. Any suggestions? Well, first I'm going to say, hey, it's not just you. Asparagus is a bugaboo. Honestly, when it comes to asparagus, it can be quite challenging for any grower at any level. Asparagus seeds, there's a lot of different variables that are needed to get asparagus to germinate properly. One, we have to look at the seed in the plant itself. Asparagus is native to, it's a Mediterranean plant. So one, you have to get the warmth right. So to get proper germination, you're looking at a temperature range, consistent temperature range of between 70 to 75 degrees consistently. Then the next thing is the duration, because this is what happens to a lot of growers. Asparagus isn't going to be like your tomato seed, which you're looking at germination of about 7 to 14 days or so, or with something like basil that might be 5 to 7 days. Asparagus can take up 2 to 8 weeks to even germinate. So it really is a one you're going in for the long haul. And then now here's the next caveat. You also have to pre-soak the seeds for about 3 days even before you start that whole process. So it really is labor intensive when it comes to germinating your seeds for your asparagus. So it can be done. It truly can. But you're just gonna have to kind of hurry up and wait. And now another thing about your asparagus that we have to factor in is that it's going to be a 50-50 toss up whether or not it's a male or female plant that you're producing. That's right. Asparagus actually does have varying sexes or differing sexes. And now the reason why this is important is when it comes to asparagus, all right, your female plant is going to be focused more on propagation, recreation of itself, right? So typically you're going to see more spear production in your male plants. It's not going to be concerned with trying to create a seed. It's really about spending most of its energy creating more spears. So when you're talking about yield for your asparagus, you're talking about a significant increase in your overall spear production just by having male plants. Because again, they're not spending that plant energy trying to procreate itself. So when it comes to your asparagus, you really want to try to make sure that you're getting actual male plants so that you can get the yield and the production that you're looking for. So with that being said, I'm going to say skip the seeds. I know, like, but you're a seed guy. Why are you saying skip the seeds? Because when we're talking about asparagus, you're talking about a 20-year haul. Yeah. Asparagus is one that once you get those spears going, they're going to be growing for the next 20 years. And honestly, when it comes to production, you're looking at a 5 to 7 years really when it gets into its groove. So since we're going in on the long haul when it comes to asparagus, bare root asparagus is a great way to get a jump on the whole growing season for your asparagus because one, most of your bare roots are going to be 2 to 3 years older. So, and you soak those roots to get them out of their dormancy stage. You plant them in your soil and they will start producing in droves. And the beautiful thing about it is you don't have that differing sex that you're worrying about when you're potentially growing from seed because you don't know which one you're going to get, right? But with your bare roots, you can specifically get male bare roots so that you know that you're going to get the most bang for your buck. So I would say my advice to you is yes, while germinating asparagus seeds can totally be done, I would say the best avenue of approach would probably be starting from bare roots. All right, on to our next question. And this comes to us from at Angel Harding 2423. So I have my watermelon in too small of a space. They're growing like crazy, trying to attach to anything they can find, including other plants. How do I fix? I really only want a couple of watermelons. All right. Um, the reason why I'm laughing is because I've been there. Trust me. When it comes to watermelon, what we need to understand is one. Let's use a little bit of vocabulary, right? Watermelons have this plant trait called thigmotropism. I love that word. I love saying it. Thigmotropism. And that honestly means they respond to touch. So they send out those tendrils to actually find things so that they can climb on. They love climbing, they love sprawling. And therein lies the problem. Because since they want to climb, you really need to space watermelon out. We're talking about, 4 to 6 feet easily. But since we're already there, you already have a space that has too many watermelons in on them. And like you said in the question, you only really want a few. My immediate fix for you would be one, let's thin the herd a little bit. And I know it sounds sacrilegious to say, but thin your vines back to about one or two. Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to where your main vines are coming out of the soil, and then you're going to want to try to untangle them as gently as possible. If you do have any fruit on them, once you've thinned out to only one or two vines, then what you want to do is want to go through, and if you have any fruiting going on, I would pick the smallest ones and kind of pluck those off so that you only have, depending on how many watermelons you want. Let's say hypothetically, you only want about 4, maybe 5 watermelons. If you have about 8 or 9 on the vines, I would go through and I would pick off those smaller ones so that you can redirect that energy into those main ones. One, this is going to make the remaining watermelons sweeter, bigger, stronger. So that's my advice to you. And now going forward, let's say next season, right? Next season, I would definitely consider maybe installing a trellis or definitely try to space them out into maybe another location where you have a little bit more room. I hope this helps. All right. Next question comes to us from at Soul Brother. All right. My rosemary is taking forever to get going. It was a transplant. Well, I'm going to tell you, that's what it's supposed to do. This is normal. Don't sweat it. All right. So when we're talking about Rosemary. One, let's understand our plant a little bit. It's a Mediterranean subshrub that actually likes to focus on root development. Because what we know about rosemary is that it's super drought tolerant, right? That only applies once the plant has truly gotten to establish itself. So that's what it's going to do. Even though you're taking this rosemary from a transplant, put it into soil, it still is going to take sometimes 2 to 4 weeks and sometimes even longer, maybe months to establish that root system first. That's what's going to give it its drought tolerance. So don't worry, just give it time. In the meantime, make sure we're not overwatering, make sure we're not taking too much care of it. I really like to say when it comes to rosemary, you really almost kind of want to set it and forget it, leave it alone, don't bother it, and it'll be just fine. One thing that you have to remember is that 50% of all plant growth is going to happen beneath the soil. And when it comes to rosemary, it'd rather get that below soil plant growth first, then we start growing up vertically. Does that make sense to you? This next one, in my opinion, is a really good question. And it comes to us from at dash 9 dash 321. My wife likes gardening. I do not. How do I fall in love with gardening? The short answer is you don't have to. I really want you to think about this for a moment. You look, I love my wife too. And when we are in so much in love with our spouse, we want to do everything with them. But after 13 years this April, after 13 years of being married with my wife, I realized we don't have to do everything together. There's things that she enjoys doing and just not my cup of tea. Like for instance, during COVID, right? When we were when COVID was 2020, when we were bound to the house, we were fortunate enough that my wife could sit down with a couple of books and she could read for hours. Me, I could tend the garden, I could play my guitar, or I could sit down and play video games with my kids for hours on end. And we did not have to be occupying the same space at the same time. You know what I'm saying? But now, what I will tell you is this. What is it that your wife likes about garden? Ask her those questions, because I truly believe when it comes to any relationship, communication is king. What does she like about gardening? And then I want you to think about something. What do you like doing? I mean, there's a cornucopia of things that you could find in gardening that's not gardening per se, right? Are you somebody who likes to cook like myself? I'm originally from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and cooking is my thing. I mean, that's my get down. So if I can grow something in the garden that I can cook, boom, I'm still in that gardening wheelhouse, right? It's still your entryway. So while your wife can be growing things in the garden, you can be cooking it. Or let's say you like a nice adult beverage every once in a while. Why not grow or have your wife grow mint for you and you can make some mojitos? So you're still in that same, you see what I'm saying? You're still parallel to that gardening hobby. You don't have to love everything there is about gardening because trust me, there's a cornucopia. There's weeding, there's pest management. Oh, here's one for you. Are you into organization? That's my wife. She is the queen of organizing. So she goes in and she organizes my seed packets. She goes in and organizes all of my like soil amendments and so forth. And I love it because that's not my cup of tea. Like, look, if it's over there, I'm gonna get to it eventually. But my wife, she is a master when it comes to organizing stuff. I call her the Tetris queen because she's always finding new places to put things. So you get what I'm saying? So while she understands my love for gardening and the peace that comes from gardening, she doesn't necessarily have to garden, but still contributing to that hobby of mine. So give that a shot. Find out what it is that you like and see how that can be implemented in gardening. Are you a builder? Do you like to build things? I'm pretty sure your wife would definitely love some new garden beds or maybe some trellises or maybe an archway. So find that entryway, find that path that's adjacent to what your wife loves, and you can still be there with her. But, this is just from my point of view. 13 years married. I love my wife as well. And I love gardening. You find what makes you happy. All right. At Sean Breeze, big question. I got blueberries. Do you have a container soil mix recommendation? I'm in the DFW area, that's Dallas Fort Worth, and looking to gather the needed ingredients locally. Well, first, Sean, I like the way you think. We are cut from the same cloth. I'm the same exact way. I love getting my hands in soil and I love mixing up my own blends. So, with that being said, I have a recommendation. I have notes for you here. What I would go with for you is a 50% sphagnum peat moss along with a 50% pine bark mix. That's how I would do my mix up. That's actually how I do my mix up in my grow bags where I grow my blueberries as well. Now, what you don't want to do is you don't want to go with like a garden soil blend because one, that's going to retain way too much moisture. And even your potting mixes can retain way too much moisture as well. So I would say, yeah, 50% on the sphagnum and then 50% on your pine bark. Now, the reason behind this and why this is going to work, because one, sphagnum peat moss is already is slightly acidic, right? And now sphagnum peat moss is actually slightly hydrophobic as well. So that's definitely going to benefit blueberries because they like to have good drainage. They're like strawberries and asparagus. They don't like to have wet feet. Then incorporating that 50% pine bark, that's going to aerate your soil a little bit, again, adding to that drainage ability. Combined with a grow bag, you are set to go. Now, I know you didn't tell me the exact containers that you're growing your blueberries in. I would say if we're not growing them in ground, I'm going to put my money on grow bags. I've had really good success with growing them in grow bags. I do have some sparsely placed throughout my garden placed in soil, but I really like the ones that are growing in the grow bags more. Does that make sense? So give that a shot. Let me know what you think. And now, if you are looking for someone locally, there's several big box locations that you can definitely check out and get these supplies, no problem, all throughout DFW. But you know what? If you have follow-up questions, hit me up and I'll definitely help you out. All right, look at this. We got another blueberry question. Come on now, blueberry growers. Now, this question comes to us from at there's an herb for that 8819. Yeah, I remember you. I think I got some questions from you the first and second episode. Welcome back. Hey there. Wondering if I can feed my blueberries fish fertilizer or will it change the pH of the soil too much? Is there a specific food I should be giving them if the fish meal, fish fertilizer is too much? Bone meal, maybe? Thanks. All right. When it comes to blueberries, one, we need to remember when it comes to blueberries, they are not heavy feeders. They're not like your tomatoes and cucumbers in your garden. They really don't like a lot to eat. The way they access their nutrients, the way they gain everything from the soil is going to be in the pH. That's going to be key. So make sure we get that pH down to that 4.0, like 4.5 to 5.5. That's the sweet spot we want to be in. Now, as far as your fertilizers, um, I would say with fish fertilizer, yes, they're going to be high in nitrogen, but they're going to be kind of a slow release. And so typically your NPK breakdown is going to be like a 5-1-1. And that's where we want to be because this is something we would use to maintain our blueberries. We're not trying to, douse our blueberries in it. We really just want to use it for maintenance and do so sparingly. If you're going to use a fish emulsion, make sure you dilute it well. Most of the instructions on every fish emulsion I've ever seen has been 1 tablespoon to 1 gallon of water. When it comes to the blueberry, since I know they don't like a lot of feed, I would say cut that even more so by about 50%. So I'd say 1 tablespoon to 2 gallons of water. So give it sparingly. Now, the second part of your question, when you were talking about implementing something else, like a bone meal, no, we don't want to go bone meal. All right, so fish emulsion is higher on the nitrogen side. Again, that's the 5-1-1. So we really want to have more of the nitrogen, a little bit of the phosphorus, a little bit of the potassium. Your bone meal is actually going to be higher on the phosphorus side. We don't need that much bone meal. So I would stay away from the bone meal fish fertilizer. Yes, diluted and sparingly. And if you have follow-up questions, definitely let me know. You know I'm here to help. All right, next question comes to us from Instagram, and this is at Sloped Garden Life. And the question asks, how can I control weeds on a slope without mulch washing away? Okay, one, I understand your name on Instagram. You live on a slope, right? That's a very good question. All right, so we're looking for weed suppression, but if you go with like a mulch, it's gonna wash away. Now I don't know exactly what the grade of your land is, but I understand this dilemma. So when we're talking about our mulch is going to be very fine particulates, right? I would say my first course of action is possibly going with a heavier, denser wood chip. Your heavier chips are going to have a little bit more weight to them, and they actually may hold on to your soil. So that's one course of action. Go with something that's a little bit denser, a little bit heavier, so it doesn't completely erode away. Second course of action is, and you may want to incorporate 1 and 2 together, is depending on what the grade of your land is, maybe considered netted erosion blankets. Now, to understand what erosion blankets are, all right, we're going to take a trip. We're going to do like Mr. Rogers did back in the day. We're going to use our imagination, right? All right, so we're using our imagination. Think about any time you've been to like a national park or by a creek bed or by a river bed. You've probably seen this netting on the side of the banks. That's what that is. That is erosion blankets to stop the soil from being eroded away. Now, growing up back in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, when I was a kid, the Mississippi River has always been notorious for changing its path. So one of the ways they try to combat that is by using those erosion blankets to stop the soil from eroding away. I would say that if we incorporated erosion blankets along with our heavier, denser, heavier mulch, that could be possibly your course of action as far as trying to suppress weeds without having everything wash away, right? Now, there is a third option. And honestly, now that I'm seeing these all out loud, you could probably incorporate all 3 of these. A living mulch, like something like a creeping juniper, some kind of creeping plant that can be used as a living mulch that can actually help lock that soil in. So that's my recommendation for you. And of course, as always, follow up with me so I know what course of action you went with and what works out best. Because believe it or not, I actually, at the back of my property, I have a creek as well. My land drops off about 20 feet down to a creek bed. So I've run into the same exact issues. Now, the only difference is I'm inundated with tree canopies all over the place. I have a very extensive root system in these trees, ranging from junipers. What else do I have back there? Mesquite trees, oak trees, all over the place. And all those roots kind of lock in my soil. But of course, your situation may not be the same. So I would say give that a shot. Heavier, denser mulch, preferably like a wood chip, erosion blankets, and then incorporating a living blanket. No, not a living blanket. Incorporate a living mulch like a creeping juniper or something that may grow better in your zone. All right. Keep me posted on how it goes. Guess what? We have been having such a phenomenal time together. The time just flew by. That's right. That's it for us here today. But I just want to tell you, no matter where you're growing, whatever piece of this world you reside on, know that I exist to help you grow. And I do really appreciate our time that we get to share together. And I have a task for you. One, if you have questions, know that I am here to help you grow as much as possible. So never hesitate to drop any of those questions right there in the comments, and I will definitely help you out. But secondly, if there's a gardener or grower who's maybe interested in getting into this world of greenery in which we reside, make sure you share this video with them. Make sure you share this podcast with them, because truly, together as a society, we grow better together. It has been amazing speaking with you as always. I'll talk to you again real soon.